Okay, in this section I will talk about simplifying radical expressions. There are two main basic rules to keep in mind when trying to simplify radical expressions. The first one is the square root of a times the square root of b actually equals the square root of a times b under the same square root. The second one is the square root of a over b equals the square root of a over the square root of b. So you can split these two up when you have a fraction inside of a square root. Sometimes in math books you also see an n placed outside of the root. It's the index sign. What this index sign means is simply that these rules all apply. They apply to all radicals. So all roots, which means the square root, the cube root, the fourth root, the fifth root, and so on. So they apply to all rules, as long as the indexes are the same on both of these roots. So let's do a couple of examples. From previous math classes, you know that the square root of 16 equals 4. Okay. There's no number outside of this square root sign, which means that it's implied that it's actually a 2 here. What this 2 stands for is that you need to find two numbers multiplied together that equals 16. So those two numbers are 4 and 4, the same two numbers. This could also be -4 and -4. Now, but in this section I will only consider the positive solutions unless the negative solution is stated, or if they want us to find the negative solution. So I'm only going to focus on the positive one for now. So how do we figure out the solution to, or how do we simplify the square root of 80, for instance? Well, you could do it several different ways. This is the way I found the simplest. So what I do is I try to break down the 80 into prime numbers. I try to break it down into factors. So how do we do that? Well, I first begin by dividing it by 2. If that doesn't work, I divide the number inside here by 3. If that doesn't work, I continue up until the point where I realize that the number cannot be simplified. 80 is an even number, and we can go right ahead and divide this by 2. So to divide it by 2, 2 times 40 equals 80. Now we can divide the 40 into 2 and 20. 2 times 20 equals 40. Continue on, 2 times 10, and then 10 can be divided up into 2 times 5. Now we've reached the point where we cannot go any further. So these are the numbers that are going to go into our new simplified version of the square root of 80. So we rewrite the square root of 80 as the square root of 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 5. You could also write this as the square root of 2 to the power of 4 times 5 if you want to. I'm going to explain it this way, but if you want to do it this way, there's no problem in doing it that way. So this 2 outside that I mentioned earlier means that we need to break out groups of two of the same number inside the square root. So I have one group of 2 of the same and another group of 2 of the same in here. So we break those groups out, 1, 2, and another 2, and then we multiply them by each other. So this number stands for what that number is in this group. So what's left inside is the square root of 5. So 2 times 2 equals 4. So this is going to be, the final answer to this question is going to be 4 times the square root of 5. Now, let's say we had a little more complicated problem. Say we had the fifth root of 32. Let's say we have the negative fifth root of 32. Now don't be scared by this negative sign in front of the fifth root. What this means is that we're going to solve for the fifth root of 32, and whatever answer we get to, we're just going to add on that negative sign to this solution. So we are going to end up with a negative sign at the end, negative solution at the end. So we break down 32, 2 times 16, 2 times 8, 2 times 4, and then 2 times 2. We reached our prime numbers, and we rewrite this expression as the negative fifth root of 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. And again, you could write this as the fifth root of 2 to the power of 5 if you wanted to, and work from there. So we break out groups of 5 of the same. We have one group of 5 of the same, 2's. So we break those out, and what's left inside the square root is nothing. So remember what I said about this negative sign? We broke out the 2, and then we're going to add that negative sign to this 2. So our final answer is going to be negative 2. So let's say we had a fraction problem. Let's say we had, well, let's start off with this problem. The square root of 8 times the square root of 2. Okay, so now, in this case, the rule that I mentioned in the beginning of this video is going to come in handy, where I said that the square root of 8 times the square root of b equals the square root of a times b inside the same square root. So we're going to go ahead and do the same thing here. This is going to end up being the square root of 8 times 2, which is equal to the square root of 16. The square root of 16 equals 4. So let's say we had a fraction inside the square root. Let's say we had the square root of 8 over, well, let's make it a little more. Let's say the cube root of 8 over 27. Okay, so the second rule that I mentioned in the beginning of the video says that we can split these two up into the cube root of 8 over the cube root of 27. And from here on, we solve it the same way as we do with all the other radical problems. So we try to simplify 8. We break 8 down into prime numbers. If we break 8 down into prime numbers, we're going to get 2 times 4, 2 times 2. So we're going to rewrite this expression as the cube root of 2 times 2 times 2. Divide this by a simplified version of 27. We break down 27 into, if you look at 27, I always try to begin by dividing it by 2. If that doesn't work, we go to 3, we go to 4, as I mentioned earlier. So in this case, 27, you can't divide it by 2, so we go by 3. 3 works fine. 3 times 9, 3 times 3. These are our final factors. So the cube root of 27 actually equals the cube root of 3 times 3 times 3. So conveniently enough, we ended up with one group of 3 here and another group of 3 of the same here. So we break this group out as well as this group out outside of the cube root sign. So I'm going to finish this off down here. We break out one group of 2's. What's left inside the square root is nothing. We break another group of 3's outside here. Well, 3 of the same of 3's. And our final answer is going to be 2/3. Okay.